Hmm.
Welcome, everyone, and thank you for joining this interview. Today we have Dr. Paul Jernigan. And Dr. Paul, go ahead and just briefly introduce yourself.
Hey, my name is Dr. Paul Jernigan. As Elizabeth said, I've been an eye doctor actually for, since 2002, so for several years. And I actually retired from my career as an eye doctor about 8 years ago because of the industry of network marketing. For me, I had a great practice. It was my own practice, made great money. There were so many reasons why it would be the dream job and the dream lifestyle for people. I worked 4 days a week. But I think like all of us at some point in our lives, we start to wonder, is this really all there is? Sitting in this room for the next 40 years, asking which is better, one, or two. And everybody knows how fun that is. So, but I didn't see life like the rest of my colleagues, and no judgment on anything, but I was really in a space of something's got to shift, and I don't know what it is. I don't know what's going to happen, but I'm really open to change, and nobody would have guessed it. Thankfully, network marketing entered my life, and that's what allowed me to retire in about 10 months from my profession as an eye doctor at the age of 32.
Wow, and I know that you recently changed companies. The one you were at had some problems. You were about to leave anyway, and so you had to change. But you are the way you connect with people. You grow such huge organizations. You're sought after by other companies. So now the one you're with now is Life Matters, correct?
Correct.
And
It's Life
that's a
Matters.
new one. So can you tell us a little bit about it?
Yeah, Life Matters is new. When I was deciding to make a change, because I think as all of us move through life, we start to resonate with things as we get more knowledge in our mind. We forget ourselves for what we didn't know before we knew it. And, I've been really growing on my wellness journey. And as a doctor and as someone who's really invested, because we also have an alternative healing practice, but really invested in people's well-being and health, there's a lot of particularity that I have around what people are putting in their bodies. So over the course of time, my old company was shifting and I was shifting and changing, and it just needed to make a change. When something's not congruent, what do? We listen and we realize, okay, it's not congruent. So what's going to happen? What's going to change? So I was looking and I researched a lot of network marketing companies. There's so many great companies, obviously, in this industry. It's a wonderful industry. But I was looking specifically for companies that were clean by my definition of clean. And I found very few, but one of them happened to be Life Matters, which is a relatively new company. It's only been around 5 years. But the owner of Life Matters, Richard Blissbrook, is considered a sage in the industry. And I respect him so much for the posture with which he approaches the industry, and the Direct Selling Association is on the board of ethics. And so I looked at Life Matters, but the products are my number one priority. How clean the products are, how they can impact a person's health, and the paradigm of nutrition that it's around. And so when I found the company, I was impressed by the products and the naturopath who developed them. And that took me to a place really where I was checking in with myself. Okay, is this congruent? Because I'm not going to sit around doing something that isn't 100% congruent. There's 95% congruent or resonant, and there's that 5% that you're not real thrilled with. Well, for me, if there was a 5% I wasn't thrilled with, I wasn't going to consider it. I'm not going to waste any of my time doing something that doesn't feel right. And I think all of us can relate to that on some level, right? I mean, you've been in the industry a long time yourself, so you understand what that feels like.
Exactly. Well, and what's interesting, I think that's why you do so well, because you're with the product line because you're congruent with it. But tell us more about how, when you're selling or talking to people one-on-one, because I think the congruency thing is a really neat. You just approach people in a whole different way than I've met people before, which is probably why you have such big teams and sell so much. But share with us how you talk to people, how you go to strangers or anyone.
Well, and I think that's a great question. I think that's all of, I think there's so many people in the industry that get into a new company or get into something. And, if they're early in the maturity of the industry, that's one thing. But if they're early in the maturity of relating to people and connecting with people, that's another. And so for me, being an eye doctor for years that I was, one thing I've always really been excited about is just connecting with people, and not connecting with people because I have an agenda or I have something that I need to get out of it, but connecting with people because I genuinely care about what's going on in their life and how I can help them if it's a fit, no matter what it is. I don't care if it's just a friend that I'm having coffee with, how can I be of assistance to them and honor their journey? And so for me, the product congruence is one thing. And I think anybody, regardless of what company that we're in, if we're really passionate about a product because we have belief in it and we have belief in the leadership of a company, the rest of it is kind of history. If we're showing up in an authentic way, that passion and that belief is going to come through. They're going to feel what our congruence is before they hear the words that we say. And so when I sit down with someone, the first thing they feel is, wow, he's interested in me. And he doesn't have this ulterior motive or some other agenda that's driving our conversation. he's purely just here for me and to be present to me. And what does that really mean? And I tell you what, it's being present with people that truly opens up doors and takes down walls if there were any walls. But when you truly show up, with your passion and belief, it's not that you have to have an agenda to get them to start using a certain product or use a certain service. It's really about the passion that you have internally is what they feel. And then your authenticity and your connection with just being present to them drives the situation and the conversation. So for me, that's where my success comes from, is just loving people up where they are and being authentically who I am and having congruence in what I do. So does that answer your question in a way that makes sense?
It does. Now, and then for some people, and I know you'll probably have, a response to this, but some people are like, okay, well, just give me a script, or how would I even approach the person? Or, if I'm in line for Starbucks, how do I even start? Or, because I know your approach is so different. What does that look like in practice?
Well, and I think there's a lot of things. As somebody who may not be as mature in terms of, say, communication with people, I think, for example, I have a lot of friends who are introverts, and they're like, wow, how could I be like you? Because Dr. Paul, you're such an extrovert. And the reality is I have introverted friends who are amazing at connecting with people in a line at Starbucks. Why is it? It's because they're just being genuine and they're authentic in the way they approach people and talk to people, even if it's something like asking a question, how's your day going? What's up with you? And not saying, how's your day going? And then hoping to get an answer, fine, so you can move on, but genuinely asking a question. So it's like the posture that we connect with people, whatever question we have, if we're interested in something, it's the posture that we have that opens up the door for them to connect with us. And so in terms of advice, it's like, just be real, just be who you are. And, if you need a script to go out and talk to people, I get that and understand that, and that can be really helpful. Like, how do I open up the door with a simple question? And there's all the, feel, felt, found, all the different tools that we have in our arsenal. But ultimately, it's about, am I truly being authentic about who I am? And if somebody asks, so how long have you been in the industry of network marketing? Are you finding success? Well, if you're not being authentic in your response to that, they're going to feel it, So ultimately, and I don't know if this answers your question, but for me, the way I approach people is how I would with anything else in my life. I don't compartmentalize my network marketing approach as I do with other aspects of my life. My life is one and the same. I love people where they're at. I am interested in getting to know people, and I am authentic about that, and I value relationships with others, and that's in all aspects of my life. So I don't do it differently for network marketing. So I think sometimes people get into a rut of, wow, now I have a product to sell, so I'm going to do it this way. And that's not ultimately what it's about. How many times have we heard this industry is about relationships? Get great at developing relationships and you'll find success in the industry. And I think that really is the long and short of it. So my success comes from the fact that I love to develop relationships with people that are authentic, that are honest, that aren't driven by some other agenda that I want, but rather driven by an agenda to get to know them and love them where they're at. And if it's a fit, great. If not, fine.
No, that's perfect. That's
exactly
what,
okay.
Because some people are, okay, I just want the script, and to understand that's not, that's not the point of it. The point is
right.
with people. Now, to that end, I know that you're really great with holding meetings and having events, and I love the way you approach it with, again, it goes back to the congruence thing, but that the right people show up.
Right.
So
right.
if you can, there's technical aspects of having meetings.
Sure.
In the personality. Go ahead and start with the personal side.
Yeah. And I'll do that. And real quick before I go into that, I will say too, along the script thing, I think when I started in the industry, there were several key points I would use when I was talking to someone, because, say I was calling someone to say, hey, you know what, I thought of you because, people want to know why you thought of them. If you're just trying to prospect people without, really thinking of them, there's something wrong there. They don't feel it. And so in terms of a script, there are some phrases that I like to use, especially with somebody new, that just open up that door, and they're very intentional about what we're doing. It's not like beating around the bush until we get to it and then it feels inauthentic. So there are some great scripts that are helpful for that, but ultimately it's about our posture that we're coming to that with. So related to events, yes, there are definitely technical pieces of events that are really important in terms of preparing, inviting properly, following up, confirming the day before, let them know there's value in what's going on. And then if they aren't able to come, definitely continuing to follow up with one-on-one meetings or whatever. So there's all that piece of it with network marketing. But my approach is this, and this is kind of the way I approach life. It's kind of a go with the flow thing, but it's like you have action steps you need to take, and then I go with the flow and I release the outcome, because ultimately it's about their lives, their journey, their timing, all of that stuff. But I know that when it comes to an event, even if I send out 40 invites to people via phone and via conversations or one-on-ones, I know the people that are going to show up in that moment in time at the event are the ones who are supposed to be there. And I'm sure there's a lot of people watching this video that have been like, wow, I had an event once and, I thought there were going to be 20 people and there were only 3. But it turned out to be the best 3 people that could have been there because there was such a great energy and synergy going on in that moment. So I always tell people, I'm like, don't stress out, I used to stress out, especially if I had one of the top earners in the world coming into my event. I'm like, oh, I have to have, 70 people there or maybe 120 people. And it's like, when I had a mentor to say to me once, wow, Paul, you know what, exactly who's supposed to be there is supposed to be there. If you did the legwork necessary to let people know what's going on, and ask them and invite them in a way that is authentic and honors their journey, it'll all work out. And it always does. And it's so true. So whether it's a one-on-one, that you're having coffee with someone, of course you want them to show up. If nobody shows up, well, then it's you. And maybe there's some reflection we need to do in that moment. But really, it's ultimately about whether it's a one-on-one or a 3-on-1 or a larger event or a home event or even a trade show or fair or something like that. The people who connect are the ones who are supposed to connect if we've done the necessary legwork to open up the doors for people. So,
and if you don't mind, I'd actually like to ask a little bit about all those different kinds of meetings.
Yeah, sure.
So like the coffee, the one-on-one, how does that one work?
Yeah, and this is my favorite, and I think we all have favorites. Some people love larger events and everybody works in a different way. Some people, they naturally have all their friends over on a Thursday night to have dinner and goof off. And some people don't, some people are more one-on-one kind of people. Being an eye doctor, I really love the one-on-one because that's what I did for so many years. Me in the exam room with a patient and maybe a family member in the room. So, one-on-one, the reason I like one-on-one so much is because I really get an opportunity to get to know someone if I don't know them well already. I get to know someone, I can be very intentional, and they know that I care because of how I'm interacting. How many times have we heard, if your mouth is moving, something's wrong, It's like, use our ears, we have 2 ears and 1 mouth, use them in proportion, right? And so when I'm at a one-on-one, it really gives me an opportunity, and it's amazing to see how much people want to share about their lives and their journey. And you know how it is when someone starts to share, they give you every reason under the sun as to why what you are offering might or might not be a fit. And it really gives us an opportunity to grow as a person by not only practicing what does it mean to be present, not hearing someone's conversation, and while they're talking, as you've probably heard before, while they're talking, Richard Bliss Brooke told us once, he said, it's so interesting how we think we're being present because we're listening. But the reality is we have 2 or 3 internal conversations going on in our head about what they're saying. Like, what's my next question going to be? How can I help them out? Oh, I could do this for them. And it's like, wow, what does it mean to really be present? So one-on-ones are a great opportunity to practice. What does it really mean to be present to someone? And it's in that presence that people, I don't care what it is, they know that you care, and we've heard that phrase. Everybody knows how much you care, much more than they care about how much you know, and that's so true. And the one-on-ones really give me an opportunity to let someone know how much I care, regardless of an outcome. And if that is our primary agenda, a year later down the road, if they said no when you first met with them or it wasn't a fit in their lives, when they know that you cared and you showed up and you didn't treat them any differently because you didn't have some posture of an agenda, a year later, they're going to remember that, and they do. And so then over the years, the number of people that come back to me over time and said, you know what, timing wasn't right back then, but life circumstances change. We've heard the phrase, plant the seed and let the circumstance of life grow it. And it's so true. It happens all the time. So one-on-ones I love because you really get to be present to someone. And still you want to have intention around why you're there. You didn't invite them for coffee without, just open-ended. It's like, hey, let's have coffee. I didn't know if you'd be interested, but this is why I thought of you. Would you mind taking a look and talking about it? And that's that. So I don't know if that answered your questions about the one-on-one.
100%. That was great. And you said 3-on-1. And for some reason, I know 2-on-1. What's a 3-on-1?
Well, it doesn't matter. 2-on-1,
3-on-1.
just more than 1-on-1 and then not an event. But 3-on-1, because, sometimes I'll reach out to someone and we're going to set up a one-on-one. And I may say, hey, and if you have a couple of friends that might be open to this with you, bring them along too. Let's all just have coffee and talk. Right? So that's a great way because I don't, when I know somebody really well, and we want to have a close one-on-one, that's one thing. But when I'm just meeting somebody and they're open to checking it out, I don't know about you, but there are so many people that are like, oh my gosh, I'd love to check it out, especially if I have another friend with me. And so we can have more fun and they don't feel as on the spot per se. Then 9 times out of 10, if you're being authentic the way you invite them and you let them know it may or may not be a fit for them, and that's okay, but would you like to just check it out? Just that whole process opens up a door so they may not feel like they need someone there, but it certainly for some people ups their comfort factor.
Perfect. And then I know that for another kind of event that you do, I know you have them sometimes in community centers or in your home.
Sure.
What does that look like when you have a bunch of different people coming at once?
It's interesting. When I first started in the industry, I always used to get really nervous around events because I was like, oh my gosh, I'm inviting people. And I had in the back of my head, oh, people don't like coming to these kind of network marketing events. And the reality is because most of those events looked exactly the same and everybody felt a little bit on the spot, and, they get passed out order forms at the end of the event and whatever else. I mean, and some people may do that and find a ton of success with that, and that may work for them, and that's great. But for me, it's not like that. The point of an event is just like we'd be doing a one-on-one, just with a bigger group. So really, my purpose, when I'm hosting an event like that is, or as a presenter, as the professional, on board, my whole purpose there is communicate. First of all, thank them for taking the time to come, just like you would on a one, but communicate to them why we might be different than something else they may be looking at. And really what sets us apart, what makes us unique, and where's our passion coming from? You explain the passion behind it, because in a group setting, you can't have a conversation with each person individually. But when you explain your passion, and then you bring other people from your business or your teams up to share a little bit about why they're passionate about what they're doing, whether it's product or whether it's business, that kind of a synergy can be really exciting for a group, and people don't feel on the spot. So it can be really successful, and it's a great way. In fact, the last event we did was at our office, and it was so different from other events I'd done because I really took the approach of, instead of getting up front and making a 30-minute presentation that turned into an hour presentation where people are sitting there in their chairs, they don't feel like they may be able to leave because they don't want to be on the spot or whatever. It was like, so what can we do to make this really simple? We're going to communicate in 10 or 15 minutes why we're different, both from a product side, both from the journey of how our company loves to honor other people and really respect that and their journey right where they're at, and just what makes it different. And that alone was enough that all these questions started coming up. And it's like, hey, you know what? Let's go sample some products. Let's just have a good time and mingle. And then this group mingled for 2 hours. And it was the most effective event I've ever done because we weren't just standing up front talking at people. And so I think there's a lot of different ways to do events like that. Some like to be very structured in terms of this is the way our company does it and this is how we're going to do things. But for us in our company, it's very much about how do we connect with people more fully? How do we get them the information they're interested in, not just the information we want to get to them? So I don't know. Does that
was great. That was awesome. It's really good to see all the different ways people do businesses, because
Sure.
Some ways resonate with some people and some are different. And actually that brings me to doing events at you mentioned booths or tables, because I don't believe we covered that when interviewing you for the book. So I'm glad we're covering it now.
Yeah.
But, when people are working events at a booth, some people take the approach, let's get a bunch of people at the booth so we can make connections with each person. And some are like, it's all about getting names so we can connect with them later. How do you approach having a booth, a big convention with people, tons of people, and how do you approach that?
Right. Well, I think it depends a little bit on the event. How many people have you talked to, especially in your experience in the industry? How many people have you talked to where they go to an event and they're like, well, you know what? The best connections I made at the event were the other vendors, instead of people coming up to the event table? How many times have you heard that? Well, that's usually a sign of the fact that it was a tiny event and there weren't many attendees. Okay, so that's one way that events can be really fun, because you're talking to other entrepreneurs who you're getting to know them, and you're talking about the challenges in life and other things that are going on. So, but this is the way I do events, and I don't do a lot of them because it's not my favorite way to do things. But if I'm going to do one, first of all, if the cost makes sense and it's worthwhile and you can get connected to people and open doors, it's awesome. But I treat those events the same way I would treat a one-on-one or a group thing. It's still about what's the information you're interested in, because a lot of people are coming up for free samples or whatever the case may be. And definitely collecting names, collecting emails, doing a drawing, those kind of things are really helpful because people give you their information. The reality is, a very small percentage of the people that are at your table writing down their name and their email for a drawing will ever reconnect, but you don't have any idea who will. You've heard the phrase, oh, what's up all about sifting and sorting, but there's a phrase really just about the fact that you may go through hundreds of people to find two pieces of gold, who are people that really get what you get. And so this is just a really fast way to sort through people to find those that may resonate with what you're doing. So I really treat events as, again, like a larger event that we do in someone's home or at an office. It's like, do the legwork, get the leads in a sense, get their names and their emails for the drawing. But the one thing I've seen so many times over and over, not only in different people's businesses in the industry, but where they collect 150 leads, say, or they collect 1,000 leads at a huge event, and they don't follow through and they don't follow up. They don't send out emails to everybody saying, hey, this is what we do. This is how we do it. And the reality is the energy you put off, even at one of those large events, is the same energy that you're going to put off, I would think, in the rest of your life. So if you're in a state of desperation and you're just trying to get a sale, they're going to feel it. So it's like, check yourself at the door at this large event. Say, my role here is to connect with the people that show up that are interested. And my role is to ask them what their interest level is, collect the names. Sure, that's going to be a source of leads that you can send out to, send emails out to people, and one or two of those people may actually respond, and it could be a really great thing. You never know what doors are going to open, but if you're in that state of posture where I'm present here at this event and my only role is to be open to those people who are looking for something like this in their life, do that, whether it's through a lead or through somebody you talk to in person that you get to connect more one-on-one and really start to develop that relationship. It's all the same posture. It's like, how can I be of service if someone is looking for this, and then taking a step from there. I don't know. Again.
No, that was perfect. And I too, I know for events, it's kind of, you're just rushing and getting names, but I know of someone that found someone at an event, and that person ended up selling over $100,000 worth of their
Exactly.
So,
exactly.
Yeah, they exist. They have their purpose.
Yes.
And going back to that, or moving to the next one, I know that part of, you build huge organizations, with the one you're in, you're growing quickly. And I almost know what your answer might be.
You could probably answer it for me.
Yeah, with the people on your team. But what other supports, what makes your team different? What supports do you offer people who are on your team?
Well, I think there's a lot of different things. As someone develops in their leadership role in the network marketing industry, they learn different ways of being present to what's going on in their organization. So one of the first things that I love about network marketing is that oftentimes, whatever company we're in, for example, in my company, Life Matters, I love the fact that everything in terms of training, getting someone started, everything is so like womb to tomb taken care of by corporate. And that for me, in terms of creating duplication in a network marketing business, is everything. So, that means, okay, the tools that a person needs to get started, they plug into the training. Once they've done the training, it's a benchmark that I know I can take the next step with them because they've committed enough to actually do the training. Take the next step with them, which is my ability to connect. And so really, the passion, and I think what makes people great in the industry, is their ability to connect with people and love people where they're at, and let people know that they believe in them and they understand their vision, and they're going to hold space for that vision as they move forward with them. But when you have a company that has all the infrastructure in place in terms of training, Sunday night calls, Tuesday night calls, webinars, all those things, when that's all in place, it really allows a leader to step up into a role of, how can I help develop leaders in my business by mentoring them, by maturing them, really working on the relational side of things versus all the nitty-gritty details of, because in my old company, I was the one who was always trying to find a way to create a duplicatable system that people could actually use and plug into. And there was so much of my bandwidth used for that. So when I looked at network marketing companies, one of the things I looked at was, wow, I want to find a company that really is cohesive. There's no drama in upper levels of a company. The company is a one voice, one vision, and training is all the detailed stuff is there, because my focus and my forte is developing relationships and loving people. So if that stuff is there, it really makes it nice that you can focus in terms of offering support to your teams. And for me, my teams know that if they need anything, they're good. I have an open phone line. I have an open text line. They can call me. They can do whatever they want. But they also know, and as a leader and a mentor and a coach in this industry, as you would know, Elizabeth, is that if it's a question that can be answered by looking at a website or looking at a tool or some resource they have, they know I'm going to point them directly to that tool. And the reason is because I want to teach them to do the same thing so they can duplicate that process. Because if you like to be the guy or the woman who gets all the attention because everybody's asking me questions and I have all the answers, that's great, but it's not going to help you find success in network marketing long term. You'll burn out long before you build an organization of thousands of people. So I think that's, in terms of support, I'm always there to help people. I'm always there for three-way calls, two-way calls, one-on-one coffees with someone, whatever it is, whether it's local or it's a Zoom thing like this. I'm there for that. And it's really about the relational part. And then I can point them to a tool if they have questions that need to be answered that we can create duplication with.
That's amazing. Well, it's how it works. And that's something a lot of people, I know the very first time I built a team, it just about did me in.
Right. We've all been there. It's part of the experience.
Yeah.
Right.
Help them help themselves.
Right. And that's one thing, Elizabeth, that's one thing I love about you, because just watching you in the industry and how you do things, you're so great at truly being intentional about how you use your time. Because you have a lot going on in your life, right? Even right now, it's like all the stuff that you're doing. And it's so important to be able to, if you're going to grow an organization and be a leader of thousands and thousands of people in this industry, and that may not be what everybody wants, but if you want to be one of those people, you have to learn to do it in a way that's pragmatic and intentional. And so thank you, Elizabeth, for what you do and for all of us in terms of teaching us how we can build a bigger business in network marketing.
Oh, goodness. Thank you, Dr. Paul, for being on this interview today and sharing everything. I feel like in this industry, your approach is unique against a lot of other approaches. So I'm really glad that we were able to include you in the book and include everything that you have to share. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. It's been so much fun, and I'm so grateful for you, as always. So enjoy your day. Thanks, Elizabeth.